how did he initially pop up on your guys' radar? How did you guys find out about him?
You know, man, word on the street, you get to talking to some folks, you beat enough bushes and some leaves will fall out. And, you know, that's recruiting. You really always got to be ready for a sudden change. And you know, the life of recruiting never stops. And fortunately for us, he was an individual who was available that late in the recruiting cycle. We had started trying to identify some international kids because we had pretty much gone through the high school market at that point. You know, the transfer portal had pretty much dried up for the guys that we were looking at. And so that's kind of the next option, you know, for us. And, you know, we're happy with our selection.
And how about I want to talk a little bit about Jalen. Well, and when the third straight point guard is coming in, grad transfer sort of thing. What do you guys look for in that sort of situation? Someone who's coming in pretty much 1 year, maybe two, depending on different situations, stopgap, as opposed to a point guard who you can sort of bring through the process. What does that player need to sort of have naturally, and how do you find that fit?
Yeah, you know, I think they have to have a level of consistency throughout their career. And Jalen has done a tremendous job at Princeton. You know, just having that maturity in the locker room. They've been through the paces from a competitive standpoint. So there are a lot of things that, yeah, they'll have some new things that they have to learn here in terminology, maybe different schematic things offensively and defensively. But for the most part, the guy who's been in school that long, you know, they've kind of been through the paces and just really need to get caught up to how we do things around here. Jalen's been really good from the standpoint as well as the others, and just in terms of having some early leadership, just being a steady guy, you know, somebody that you need some consistency, some predictability, and there is some comfort in having an older guy in the locker room who's been there and done.
And now that you've had him on campus for a little bit, is there anything that sort of surprises you? Has there been sort of any moment in practice where, I mean, obviously you're getting a talented player, but maybe I didn't know he could do that, or anything that's surprising you or not?
Yeah, I mean, like I thought he had a really good European trip for us, and you know, when you have a guy potentially for only a year, you hope you get it right. And if he continues that level of consistency, that level of play, he'll put us in a position, you know, to have some success this year. And that's all we're asking for. And he's another cog in the wheel of a lot of talented dudes on the roster. And you know, like Coach said when he named the captains a few weeks ago, just because you're not officially a captain, you know, you've been in this long enough that your voice needs to be heard, and so that's the expectation that Jalen will be one of those guys whose voices will be heard in that locker room.
Saddi, can you talk about T. Will a little bit? Some inconsistency. Some games he'd be lights out. I know down in Indianapolis, I think it was Colorado State or Tennessee, he was huge.
Yeah.
Other games he kind of disappeared. What's it going to take for him to be consistent?
Yeah, I think with him, just a level of the reps. You know, I think the expectation now has changed for him to, you know, be a guy who leads, you know, from the front instead of a rotational guy who was kind of a fill-in. And to T. Will's credit, man, he's done a really good job of kind of waiting his turn, getting better throughout the process. You can see his leadership, you know, slowly evolving, and that kind of confidence stepping forward. He's kind of a jack of all trades for us. Like, I mean, he knows 1 through 5 where everybody is supposed to be out on the floor, offensively and defensively. And when you lose a guy like Eli Brooks, who is very similar in that vein, you need, you know, a guy like Terrence Williams who kind of has a great feel for everything.
What does he improve most, Saddi, in his game from last year to this year?
I think his overall confidence. You know, like he's a guy, like you said, kind of a streaky shooter. You know, tough guy where we can move around offensively and defensively. I think that's his greatest strength, his versatility. And so we're going to rely on him, you know, on a more consistent basis, night in and night out. and I believe and we believe he's up for that challenge.
I know it's early, but have you seen signs that this is going to be a better shooting team than last year, or can it be?
We hope so.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to
Right.
predict. You know, shooting in practice and shooting in the games are
Yeah.
two different things. You know, when the popcorn gets popping, you know, that's when the players emerge.
Sound like Phil Martelli.
That's it. And so, you know, I think that we've always tried to have guys on the roster who can really shoot the ball from the perimeter. You know, we had our pro day the other day, and guys shot the ball really, really well. And again, really, it's about consistency. You know, because you're going to have some days where the ball just isn't going to go through the net. But how else are we going to be able to impact winning? And that's what we're really focused on.
A lot of the scouting reports we've kind of seen about Yusuf have shown that he's like a good defensive player. How does he kind of fit into you guys' system on the defensive end?
You know, again, another big wing, you know, that can defend multiple positions. That's the key. You know, we talk about having a positionless program with guys who can play multiple positions. And Yusuf, we call him Yo-Yo. Yo-Yo is one of those guys. And I think as he catches up to the speed of the game here, and really, again, he's only been with us for a month. Forget a lot of these guys, we've been practicing since July. And so a lot of these guys know the terminology, understand the rotations, and so he's getting better at it. And I think once he really settles in, gets the game reps, that's when you'll see, you know, a lot of his instincts come through.
And if I could ask a follow-up too, like what's been the biggest surprise with him kind of joining the team so far? I know you guys didn't get to really see him in person before.
Yeah, I mean, really just his ability to be one of us. Like, he's one of us. He's a Michigan man. And it's hard, you know, for an international kid, for a European kid to kind of, you know, do a 180 and at the drop of a hat, because, you know, he had professional opportunities and aspirations that he could have pursued. And for him to really, I mean, really it was since day one. Like, I really didn't see a time where he kind of struggled, you know, to fit in. And, you know, the guys love him. He's really done a good job of just, again, immersing himself in our culture, in our program. And, you know, he's a special kid.
With Joey, I guess he brings outside shooting and experience, obviously, but I guess what else does he bring that might get overlooked?
Again, JoJo, man, he's a lot like Jalen. You know, we joke all the time, we're gonna put him back in his time capsule so he can remember who he is. You know, we got to get his flux capacitor up to 88 miles an hour so that we can generate, you know, 1.2 gigawatts of energy. But he's been tremendous, man. Like, you know, he's always been known as a really good leader at Duke. And, you know, he's one of the guys at practice if things are down, you know, he's encouraging guys, all the while learning, right? Like, he's learning a new system, learning a new league, and he's been shooting the ball really well. And now it's just about getting him, you know, back where he feels confident in himself physically and mentally, mostly, because we recruited him a little bit on the front end of it, and he was such a talent coming out of high school. And you know, sometimes you just need a new space, you know, to remember who you are, and we hope that you know, so far that he's really done a good job of really just embracing the change, and we can see, you know, his true self.
And I guess with Hunter, speaking of leaders, I guess how have you seen him evolve? And I guess what do you feel like is his greatest strength as a leader?
Yeah, same thing. I think he wasn't or isn't a natural alpha, what I would consider a natural alpha dog, you know, when you consider like a guy like Xavier Simpson. But I think Hunter has understood that in order for us to be great, he has to take a larger role, not just what he does on the court from a basketball perspective, but also from a leadership perspective. And I know Coach Juan has really challenged him in a lot of ways to step up and use his voice. He's done a great job of mentoring guys like Terrence Reed early on, very much so like Austin Davis did for him, right? And because we all know, like, it's not a one-man show. We need all of our pieces to be great. And you know, the more he steps forth and allows himself to lead this group, the more they're going to follow. And we know he's a great player, and that's what we're looking for from him.
How has he embraced I think a couple years ago he might not have thought he was going to be in college for 3 years. I guess how has he embraced this different path for him and kind of the legacy that maybe he could leave behind?
That's a very important word you just used, legacy. And I think as much as we embrace, recruiting, these kids, we want what they want, to be a great student athlete, but and ultimately, to have a chance to play on the next level. But man, college is fun, right? Like if we are honest with ourselves, that was like the last pure moment in our lives where we could just, before real life started to happen. And I mean, he's the man on campus. Like, he's on Fox Sports and, doing college kickoff game day. And, now with the emergence of NIL and, being able to, grow his brand that way, man, like, enjoy college. I think Michigan is the best place, the best blend of academic and athletic excellence in the country. And why wouldn't you? How couldn't you not have fun at a place like this?
Sure. He said in Minneapolis that he felt the pieces of his team fit better together than last year. What do you think he meant by that? And do you agree with that?
I think like this team has done a really great job of blending from a personality standpoint. And a lot of times, when we have those opportunities to do those early foreign tours, you really get an opportunity to really know the guy that's sitting next to you, especially for the incoming guys, right? Because when they first get here at the end of June, well, they're still trying to get used to going to class, the bridge program. So like their schedule, we're at practice and then they're going off, or, everybody's kind of coming and going. But like that opportunity to spend 10 days together over in Europe and have a little bit of fun, as you guys saw, I think that does a lot in terms of, setting the tone for your season.